Hello and welcome to this RTS Q&A. My name is Rihanna Dillon and we are celebrating over a decade of Made in Chelsea. So Made in Chelsea is produced by Monkey, which is part of Universal International Studios, and it's become part of the fabric of our lives. It's won BAFTAs as well, and you can watch the first episode of series 23 tonight on E4. But ahead of that, I am delighted to be joined in conversation by two of the executive producers. We have David Granger, the creator of Made in Chelsea, and Nazleen Karim, who's been with the series for the last 3 years. And then, of course, three of the wonderful cast. We have OG, Fred Ferrier, we have Miles Nazaire, who has had many an explosive storyline, and then, of course, Paris Smith, one of the newer cast members. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
So great to talk to you. This is honestly such a pleasure. I've been watching since the very beginning, and you know, it was one that you just always text. I always text my mum throughout, my friends throughout it, and it's just very, very exciting that we've had over a decade of Made in Chelsea. But Dave, I want to take you back to the beginning. Tell us how Made in Chelsea came to be. Where did the idea come from?
Well, I'd love to say I was the creator. I guess I was one of the creators. So way back, all those many years ago. So as Monkey, we were already in the business of making reality shows, and in casting those had come across people who lived in Chelsea, like these fine people here, and thought they were amazing in many different ways, but for whatever reason didn't fit the shows that we were looking for. So we thought we'd create a show for them, essentially. And we were really excited by a show that, as we do a lot at Monkey, doesn't sort of fit a sort of particular genre. We don't like being in a box much. And so a show that looked like a drama, but wasn't scripted at all, felt like a really interesting way to approach this particular group, because they are, you know, live incredibly aspirational lives. They are extremely funny. They're bright. They're articulate. They're a very close-knit group, importantly, so their paths cross a lot. And I think we were keen to make a show about dating, relationships and friendships, and this group, because of the nature of the way they socialize, essentially, felt, and because of the way they are as sort of amazing personalities, felt like a brilliant way to do that. And the show for us was, as I said, it was about dating and friendships. We didn't want to talk about wealth or anything like that. It just happened to be a show that lived in this sort of amazing neighborhood with these incredible people in it, essentially. And we didn't have any idea it would last 10 years or more at that stage, clearly, but I'm delighted that it did, and still breaking records today as well. So it's been amazing. And Fred was there in episode 1, of course, which I look back at episode, whenever we have this chat, I look back at it, and you were described by 2 girls at a bar as being like a living sculpture, such was his physique. So that's where the show came from, essentially. And then, you know, it's down to the team that make it, not me, and these incredible cast members, that it's still as brilliant as it currently is.
Yeah, so the female gaze was always in Made in Chelsea, clearly. Naz, when you came on board then a few years later, where was Made in Chelsea at that stage, and what did you hope to bring to the series with a new pair of eyes?
Well, I'm like you, I was such a massive fan, and I was so excited. I was even so excited to have an interview with Dave, and I think I just gushed about all the cast members that I was really fascinated by. I wanted to hear more of, and I just approached it like a fan, which was probably maybe the best way to go, because I wanted to see more of things like what the cast are going through, because I know initially that there was Liv discussing her alopecia, and I thought that was a real milestone moment that I was watching as a fan of the show. And so, we discussed with the cast about how, non-specific storylines, as it were, non-storyline topics, for example, grief, surrogacy, alopecia, colorism in dating, how these affect their lives on a daily basis, and how they can also be as resonant, on screen and important for the viewer to go through with the cast. So from that point of view, I just wanted to, explore more of the cast lives, and also, show how real it is for everyone going through this. It's really tough to put your lives on, on camera and be so vulnerable to everyone. And, there is always that criticism of how real is it? And it is real. And we just like to show our hand even more by occasionally, breaking the fourth wall and going handheld, in scenes where, there is more to explore, there is more raw emotion spilling over. So I think I just came, like I say, I came to it like a fan and just wanted to show even more, what there is to offer, on the show.
You've touched on so many things that I want to delve into a little bit more later, but let's go back to Fred then. So yeah, you were in the first ever episode. You've dipped in and out since, but you obviously have
literally dipped in and out, because I remember the first thing was when I fell in the river, which was which was an intense that was actually quite funny, because I remember, so Sarah Dilliston, I remember after Francis and I fell in, Francis, basically, he was a rower, and at the time they're like, oh, you guys on the river together, it's gonna look amazing. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not really, Francis is more of a rower, like I'm not. They're like, no, it's fine, you'll have loads of time to sort of warm up and practice. And we get to Henley, and it's absolutely freezing, and it's chucking it down. And then they're like, right, okay. And also, we've never been on camera before, so like, we were not only shaking from the cold, but also like quite nervous. And we get on this boat, and I'm in an extremely tight top, which actually, Miles, would be right up your street these days.
I still have that top.
Yeah, exactly. And we were there, and I remember just like sort of chatting, and then Francis pushed off, and I had no idea, because we had no time to practice, and then we fell in. The reality start, and yeah, but no, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure, because it's a huge part of my life. I've been doing it for 10 years, so it's a third of my life. So yeah, and it's I always enjoy every single season. It's like, I don't know, it's crazy, because I obviously started when I was 20. I was one of the first 5 guys, and it's all I've ever really known, to be honest. It's opened up a huge amount of doors, and there's, initially there was a stigma that reality TV can sort of hinder a lot of other things, but actually for me it's been very positive. And I saw that, I read up a bit, and that you did some stuff for BBC Radio 1 and 1 Extra, and my songs have actually made it on to BBC Radio 1. And Ricky, I remember Ricky was reading his like, from Made in Chelsea, crazy cousins, not bad. So like, yeah, I think it's all in all, it's been an amazingly positive experience. And I've even been able to meet some, questionable, interesting people like Mr. Nazaire over there, who has his moments, but deep down he's a good guy.
Questionable?
Yeah. I love you though, brother. I love you.
We thought the tricep trio is the best thing you've ever had.
You're right. It's actually, my CV is literally just nothing about anything. It just says tricep trio. That's it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Well, I mean, Miles, you joined about 4 years ago, so you actually had the benefit of some knowledge of the show beforehand, unlike Fred. So how did it differ to what you imagined the experience of filming might be like?
It was a big part of everyone's lives, Made in Chelsea, and a lot of people go, no, I never watched it. Yes, you did. We all did. We all watched it. I was a fan of the show. I thought it was a great show, and it was, it's the only one really like it in TV at that stage. The whole kind of looking into real people's lives and their relationships and all that. So everyone's intrigued, and everyone wanted to know what these people were up to, and what was going on. And obviously I was in that area anyway. Naturally, I was kind of in Chelsea, Fulham. Fulham is basically Chelsea as well. It was a great show, and I've always watched it, and I thought it was great. And then when the opportunity to go on it came about, it was like, oh yeah, I mean, why not? It could be good fun. I knew a couple of the people on the show. I thought, I honestly thought I was going to last an episode. I was like, yeah, I'll do an episode. I'm sure, whatever, I'll get out of here. And to this day, we've got someone from Locations called Mike Patak, who still believes he's the one who discovered me. He did not. It was another director who discovered me. Mike was like, yeah, Miles is because of me. I'm like, no, not because of you, Mike. Don't tell him that. But yeah, and I remember my first episode, I was bricking it. I also never had any problems with spots, and I had the biggest spot on my forehead.
A stressful,
and
yeah.
The Chelsea filter, which to this day you can't see it, which is great. But I remember the first day it was really scary, because I wasn't really sure what to expect. I've never, been on camera like that before. I remember I met Toff I think that was the first time at Toff, for a few drinks in this rooftop bar, very nice. And it was just the beginning of an amazing life that I still have today with all my friends, and creating new friendships, and being able to watch it and then be on it. It's been great. I've loved it, every single second of it. And again, like Fred said, you know, it's opened up so many different opportunities and different things to this day. So forever grateful for that.
That's really lovely to hear. Well, for Paris, what about you as one of the newer members of the cast? What did you hope that you could bring to the landscape and the conversation as well?
Well, obviously, like, I'm late in the game. But, yeah, I don't know. I think it was interesting as well. I watched the show when I was before I was on it, and so kind of had an idea. But then being on it actually is very, very different. I think it was really exciting. I think also just being able to talk upon topics that I hadn't spoken on camera about, because I guess when I was younger, I did some stuff like documentaries. It was very real conversations, and then now on Chelsea, having a platform where, you know, so many people watch that are our age, and they're, you know, at the end of the day, they are influenced by the show in a sense. And I got to speak about my relationship and my relationship issues in the past, and what it's like to be, you know, diverse in Chelsea, which was really exciting. And obviously having such a good group of friends around you made it so easy to have those conversations and be natural. And I think the public also quite related to that. It was nice.
What was your kind of like initiation into it? You know, can you remember like the first scenes, how you were put at ease by the rest of the cast, the production crew?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it would be really nerve-wracking coming on camera, but I guess because you're with your friends, you realise that actually you've been doing this your whole life, having conversations. And I think everyone's really friendly coming on, so it was so easy and natural that, again, it was only like watching it back that I was like, oh wow, okay, that's like me on TV. But otherwise it really just felt like any normal lunch, any normal day, and everyone was really friendly. So again, just an easy situation to be in.
Dave, as we just kind of touched upon, sometimes we have old faces return, and, you know, cast members do come in and out of the show. So tell us the reasons behind that and why that works, and how you work storylines around it as well.
I'd love to again say that some amazing thinking. Yeah, we'll have Fred back in 3 series time, definitely, and all that. And it just doesn't work like that. It is things evolve, you know, day to day, week to week. That's how we manage the cast, you know, as their lives progress and things happen. We then fit ourselves around that and work out with the cast how to put those things on camera best, essentially. So there is no sort of summit meeting at the beginning of every year where we decide which ones we want to have back. You know, as casts, some casts go for one reason or another. We always say, you know, the door is always open if you want to come back. We look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully. You know, so Fred was one of those, obviously Ollie, etc. So there's been a number of them that have gone and come and whatever. So I suppose it's a show that lasts as long as it has. And it says a lot for its, you know, its credibility and its sustainability, that people, even though they're getting older, you know, that the show can have, you know, can still, you know, carry them through. So even the show was about dating and relationships. You know, just because you're married doesn't mean to say you can't be on the show. You know, we've got mothers on the show now with kids. You know, I'm really proud of how much the sort of the topics, if you like, the range of things the show covers has evolved and grown over the years. It's something that's, I think, why it's as successful as it is now. You know, the cast are so generous with their lives and what they're prepared to put on camera, which is, you know, very brave and, as you can hear, rewarding. I think it's probably not rewarding sometimes, if they're honest, because it is sometimes hard when there are things that you're going through which are tricky. So I'm, you know, to say a breakup on camera is like the greatest thing and you'd love to do it all the time would not be the case. But I think, you know, but the point is that's life. You know, life has ups and downs. If we just had a show where everybody was really happy, you know, no one would believe it and it wouldn't sustain its, you know, wouldn't sustain at all. So, you know, I think the way we reflect things has made people comfortable themselves to stay on the show. And also, I think the way the show has changed has meant that people want to come back. So, you know, Fred, Ollie and Gareth, I suppose one would talk about, you know, that's been amazing having them back as well. Having their wedding was incredible, following their, you know, attempts to have a child, you know, that all of that surrogacy journey that they're on right now is an amazing thing for the show to be able to follow as well. So, you know, what Naz and the team have done with the show in the last 3 to 5 years has allowed it to be able to do that as well. And I think it feels, I hope, to the audience more real now than it ever has. I mean, it's always been real right from day one, whatever anybody wants to think. But actually, I think now it has much more sort of authenticity, which is a terrible word that television bandies around all the time.
David, the question on everyone's mind, and I've been thinking, is when are you going to come on the show? I think that's the sort of
as a what
thing. This what the fans want. It's what
aging uncle kind of, you know, figure. Like
hey, as you said, the show, it's for everyone, right? So I'm very excited. That goes for you as well, Naz. So we're all just patiently waiting.
Love to come on, certainly, and offer sage advice to a young music entrepreneur.
You could be the new Binky's mum. That's your
oh, no one could be Binky's mum.
No.
She another one who keeps coming back, and delightfully as well. No, we love having the parents on. Actually, it's been brilliant. Miles's dad has had some very good advice to Miles, which some of it she's cared not to listen to and should have done. I have to say.
He's got his own fan club now.
Yeah. No, it's my dad loves it. He calls me, when am I coming back? I'm like, hey, the fans love you. The fans love my dad. They send him messages, like, it's great. It's great.
I want to talk about the relationship again between the cast and the producers. So Naz, can you tell us how you do communicate all of those storylines that Dave was just touching on, and what is important for the cast to talk to you about in terms of what's going on in their life?
I think it's having conversations regularly, almost daily or twice daily. I think we're always touching base with the cast, and it very much everything is led by them. So what they're going through is what we essentially get on camera. So there's no orchestration about, oh, let's try and amp this up. This is what they're going through. We just try and make sure our cameras are there at opportune moments to capture, you know, the story arcs as, you know, they go through them. And yeah, it's almost like, I know it's cheesy to say, but it's like a family where, you know, you are checking in all the time, you know, what's going on, what are you excited about, what you're worried about, and also how can we help? And it doesn't need to be sort of storyline related content when we offer that, you know, shoulder to cry on. It can be anything. Oh, I'm going through a tough time at work. Okay, fine, you know, we're here to talk. So I think, yeah, clear communication and honesty every step of the way is the most important features of our relationship. And I hope these guys can attest to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, Paris, what kind of support, when you first came on, what kind of support did you need from the production team? Can you describe your relationship from your side a bit?
Well, I guess just like getting the confidence to not be nervous in front of the camera, because you kind of think like, you know, what am I saying? What are people going to think when you first start? And so having really good producers there that sort of, you know, coach you with your confidence, but also like any time that I felt really emotional, I felt like, you know, a situation was hard, like for example relationships and dating side, there's always somebody there in terms of the production to almost like be a friend, and I think that was important, because sometimes it is a hard situation when you're going through a breakup, or if you're like me having just men being trash, but they really help you to have like a shoulder to cry on. But again, I think a lot of my confidence even does come from a lot of the production. I'd say I'm very friendly with them, and they've given me a lot to appreciate in terms of being on the show. It would not be the same without them at all.
Fred, how do you think that Made in Chelsea has adapted and evolved in the way that Dave was talking about over the last decade from an insider perspective?
I think fantastically, and something that was said at the beginning, which I was like, damn, I was going to say that. But so I think initially it was very much, well, initially the show was actually, I don't know if maybe I'm allowed to say it, maybe not. Initially the show was going to be called Chelsea Girls, and then it changed to Made in Chelsea. And initially it was like, it focused a lot on sort of the different people and their businesses. And then it kind of just went very into the relationships. And then when I came back, because I took a break, and I took a break for about 4 years, and I moved to New York, and I set up an art gallery, which is another Zoom call altogether, which we don't have time for. And when I came back, the thing I really liked about the show was the fact that it then touched on these much harder, sensitive issues, which I think before people were almost too scared to film about. And I remember when a very sort of Alex Mitten, close friend of all of ours, was opening up about his mother, and I remember thinking, this is fantastic because it's raising awareness, and it's not just the classic sort of love triangles, love squares, you name it. It was like we were actually hitting on some really hard issues, and I felt like the producers were also very sensitive and very sort of good at filming that, because that's an immensely private thing to talk about. And I think the show handled it really well with being able to actually televise something that's so personal and so sensitive. And as it was also mentioned, that all the other different things that have happened, especially like Ollie and Gareth and stuff, I think it takes you by surprise. And I remember with the recent episode where at the end it said that Ollie and Gareth lost the baby. Like I remember, because they didn't tell me that, and I remember seeing that, and it just gut wrench emotion. And I think in a way, I don't know any other sort of reality shows that have this spectrum and this sort of spread of emotion. So I like, hats off to the show. And also one thing I always say to people is they clearly know what they're doing. Dave, I mean, hats off to you, Dave, because it's been going on for 10 years. So I remember early on, Francis and I'd be like, oh my God, like, why the hell are they filming about this? It's so boring. Or no one wants to know about, but hey, the numbers don't lie. The show, like, TV is not a charity project. Like, as long as it's on TV, it's getting the views. So they clearly know what they're doing in terms of the right sort of topics and stuff. So, David, well done, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to take all the credit for that at all, because it really wasn't only me at all. But I would add, I mean, there's something about it being part of the sort of television landscape for such a long time. It's become, that I have friends, who've got teenage kids who sort of use the show to sort of to communicate with their children, because they sort of sit down and watch an episode together. Someone's having a tough time with a friend on the show, and that has enabled the parent to sort of have a conversation about friendship with their child. I mean, it's that sort of thing. And I think, that's not the basis of why we do the show, obviously, but I think it has this sort of, it's having this sort of extraordinary effect in its wake, I think, which we take very seriously, and the cast do, and have a responsibility for the things they're putting on air, as we do, because obviously there's an audience who are looking up to them, very much so, and respect the way they behave and all of that, and are looking to them for, how do I deal, with breaking up with a girlfriend or whatever it might be. I mean, sometimes they're learning how not to, I guess, but but on the whole, there is a sort of that, the connection. And I think that's, again, the difference between making a drama, which this is not, and a reality show where, the cast have direct relationships with the audience. The audience can talk to them directly, through social media. And I think, we were born, sort of within the show was born within when social media was really ramping up, and obviously it was around, but it was a big thing. And I think that is something that's kept the sort of, it's kept an engine for the show, the conversation, as you were saying earlier. People, it's an event. People sit down, they watch the show. Monday night is the thing. It's like, oh, well, I can't go out, I'm going to watch Made in Chelsea. And we're very aware of that. Friends gathering together, to watch it all together and so on. So, I think we feel that responsibility massively in how we, and it's our relationship with the cast, and also our relationship with the viewer as well. So, and it makes it, I mean, it's fantastic, exciting to be a part of something that, as I said at the start, is a bigger hit now than it's ever been. I mean, which is extraordinary. I mean, there aren't many shows that can do that. There really
Absolutely not. I mean, like Miles, we're just talking about fans being the most crucial part. Without them, this wouldn't exist. How do you balance that with the idea that, fans and audiences think then that they have an insight into your life, and even perhaps like an ownership over it, because you're very open about everything on TV?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one with fans, because people will come up to me and it's really beautiful in a weird way, because they'll come up to me and be like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened with Maeva. And they're talking to me like we've been mates for years. And I remember when it first kind of started happening, I was like, oh, what are you talking about? That happened like a month ago. What?
Right.
And you'd have to kind of, you then, as the years have been on the show, you kind of, you understand that is what it is. Like they are so much a part of your life because of how much we share. And it is tough sometimes. It is tough to be able to share so much of your life, and allow also a very large audience be a part of that. And you sign up for it, and you have to understand it. You can't fight it. As much as there'll be people who don't like you, and there'll be people who love you. But something I do love about the audience is you'll have maybe a season where people don't really like you, but then the next season they absolutely love you, and you flip it. You carry this raw emotion as much as you do with your own co-stars and your friends on the show, with the audience as well. And that's why you both relate so much. And it's epic to also see that there are like fans from like 10 years ago who are still fans today that I meet, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And you're like, wow, you've been on this journey, you've grown up. Like, with Fred, for example, when he was 20, I've been there when fans have come up to him. Actually, recently I did it at a PA. I called him at like, it was 3 a.m. and these girls they're like, oh, we love you, but we really love Fred. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. So I just FaceTimed him, and I was like, I don't think he'll be awake, but knowing Fred, he's drinking a pint of milk and peanut butter because he's a man. And he picked up, and he had a lovely chat with these two girls that are fans. It was great. So yeah,
it was actually perfect because I was on a date, and I was this girl from New York who didn't really know anything about the show, and I never really talk about it. And Miles was calling me. I'm like, oh. And then Miles was like, Fred, I got these two guys who want to speak to you. And then I just spoke to these two girls a little bit and was like, hey. And then just put the phone down casually and was like, so anyway, what was it? And she was like, what was that kind of thing? And I was like, oh,
it's just nothing.
I'm kind of famous. It's just thing. Yeah.
And I was like, Miles, you have no idea how good that was. You should actually do that, Miles.
Hey, I'm always here for you, brother. I've got a date tonight, so could you do the same?
Let me know timings and sort of thing. Yeah, we'll set it up.
Now you're gonna get the cameras there.
I was gonna say the cameras are coming, so don't worry about calling.
Oh no, it's too much. No. What are you talking
about? I mean, Miles, you brought up Maeve, and like, everyone has at least one or two memorable storylines or relationships. Is, like, for example, the Maeve thing, is her storyline embedded in yours and vice versa? Is that something that's ever going to go away, or do you think that's going to be it now for the rest of your time?
It will never escape me. Like, even to this day, and people are going to look forward to this amazing series.
So I was going to say, just wait for this season. It's like
I mean, Naz and I remember having a conversation with Naz. Was it in Buenos Aires, or I can't remember when it was.
Buenos Aires.
It was Buenos Aires. I said, I'm done with the Maeve stuff. And next series, it just couldn't happen. We gravitate towards each other, and it explodes. And the viewers, it's really weird. It's, again, the viewers love this crazy relationship that is this whatever it is that is ongoing. And yeah, I feed into her story, and she feeds into mine all the time. And I guess also, I think a big part of why that will happen is because Maeve and I, and like other relationships on the show, we were very much a very serious 3-year relationship without any cameras in our lives. So when you bring that on camera, it's you're bringing 3 years of things that people have never ever seen before, carrying on. So that has a lot to play with it as well.
And Fred, for you and Sophie, that's a pairing that people are kind of like rooting for on the show, in the audience. Is that, will they
on this Zoom call? Don't forget on this Zoom call as well.
On the Zoom call. Is that something that you really love to kind of ham up and play into, or is it hard to escape as well?
I mean, yeah, definitely similar to Miles, like the hard to escape thing. Like every single person, always says that, even like cousins, and I'm like, you two, really? But yeah, so Sophie and I'd say we have a sort of sacred relationship. But in terms of the romantic style, like, for now, it's not something that we're looking into. That's all I'm going to say for now.
Yeah.
Lawyers.
It sounds like watch this space.
You're only
Yeah.
you're just keeping that story going massively there, right there.
Yeah, you're welcome, David and Naz.
Yeah, no, completely. I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. Now I think, no, it's a thing again, clearly. Yeah.
Paris, there was I mean, you've had some really interesting moments in the show, and one bit that I was kind of like really cheering was, I think, is it Angus? You were just like, you're dismissed, and you set up this whole thing, and you could just see him getting smaller and smaller and smaller in his seat, and it was just so incredibly satisfying. So tell us about the kind of the building of that scene, and just like having the support of your friends around you, so that we got the payoff that we needed from that.
Well, I think it was an interesting one, because I feel like, you know, again, we were set up on a blind date by Ava, so it's not like we even like had chosen to engage in this thing. And to be honest, like, I'd heard these rumors about him already, so I thought, okay, let me just try and be positive. But you know, with all the beautiful girls that we have on the show, the boys' eyes can, you know, turn, and they can be tempted, and of course that's what happened to me. But I don't know, I was quite disheartened. I felt like we'd like put all this energy into it, and then there was also a bit of a friendship that was disrespected. But again, I kind of loved the fact that I had Inga on my side, and also taking the girl's side, because sometimes, you know, you'd end up arguing with the girl, and I just don't think that was really the fair case, because Inga was really a good friend to me. And so I wanted to also show a bit of girl power and be like, you know, these situations can happen. It doesn't necessarily mean it's your fault, but here's a good way to deal with it. Bring them to the forefront, make them honest, and have to face, you know, the tea, whatever it is. And it worked, and I got my honesty. But I think it's important to have girl power when it comes to those situations, but also make sure that you gain respect for yourself back in that situation. Don't, you know, let them walk all over you, and do not beg for them back. That's for sure.
Oh, it was so good. I really loved it. Do you think that the brief of Made in Chelsea has kind of changed over the years? Do you think audiences' expectations have changed? And do you think, I mean, you know, as we were talking, people are growing up, people are having children, are getting married, are moving on to the next stage of their life. So do you think they want different things from the show, or do you think they still want that escapism?
I think that, like, back when it first started, it was all very like, I don't know, relationships. From what I remember watching it, again, it was 10 years ago. And then now I think, because we are so, like, especially our generation is so vocal with a lot of topics such as, you know, maybe my thing with dating racism, or like the surrogacy thing, we like to have these conversations, and pretending like they're not happening is obviously just, I just don't think the audience would have felt like that authenticity again. So it's almost like, if you want to keep watching, these are people's lives you're invested in, and the more you know about them, the more interesting it is. And so I think having that vocal side of us is what is engaging the new younger audiences. Like, I see a lot of the people that I know that are, you know, turning old enough to watch it. They like that kind of stuff. They like watching it because it's not just like other TV shows where you're just engaging in relationships. There's now the actual conversations, and for me, even watching it, that's the parts that I really, really enjoy the most, because drama's drama, but like, you also want to remember that these are privileged people, but we do have real lives, and we do still have things going on behind that. And that, yes, we are blessed, but we are also people going through our own emotions, especially when you have 10 years, things are going to happen.
Of course. Well, Naz, what about you from the production perspective?
I think very much so. We've got an audience, we've got, you know, a diverse audience. You've got lots of people, a hell of a lot of people who we've, you know, evolved with the show as they've grown up, and so have stuck by us for 10 years. And also, as Paris said, we've got with new younger people coming into the fold, really tempted by, you know, just being invested in these young people's lives and in the issues they're going through. And perhaps surrogacy isn't something that's on the cards at the minute for them right now as 18, 20-year-olds. But actually knowing about that subject and knowing how it can affect people, friends, family members, you know, I think it's really important to them. So, I think, Chelsea's always been this beautiful, rarefied world where people live aspirational lives. You've throughout all of the years as well, the cast have always been relatable because they lay themselves bare. And doing so even more now with broaching these topics that other people are going through, I think that's just solidified the audience even more. So we've got the OG audience, and we've got a younger audience coming together, and also you've got a cast like Ollie and Gareth and like Fred who have grown up with this audience and feel a real responsibility. So, for example, when Ollie and Gareth had that awful news that last year, they felt that they had a real responsibility to tell people at home, and that's why those really emotive black cards at the end explaining what happened with the pregnancy was really important to them. And I think that's what was, like Fred said, was so gut-wrenching to read, but knowing what they went through and also wanting to give comfort to others at home potentially going through the same thing, saying you're not alone, was just important for them.
And Dave, another thing that we briefly mentioned was Liv's alopecia, because that is a subject that I don't think audiences do know a huge amount about. We don't often see it on our screens, and that was talked about. We see such detail. We see Liv being quite emotional about it, but we also see her being quite pragmatic. We talking about the wig. We also see her doing the photography with other women who are suffering from the same thing. So can you talk about how you worked with Liv and other sufferers of alopecia to kind of make sure that this was as representative as possible?
But the team that produced that, I think, she would, confided in them about the issue, like they do, the family nature of the relationship. Liv obviously has been on the show for a long time, knows people very well, why she would be turning up wearing wigs and so on, and wanted to share that with the team. And then I think my understanding is that we started talking to her about whether she might bring that, want to talk about that on the show. Because I think we felt, and it was new, as Naz said earlier, that was one of the first times. I think, I was seeing Alex Mitten talk about his mother's, passing away, and the alopecia thing were the first two times that we really sort of broke out and made everybody a bit more three-dimensional in a way, I guess. But I think, she again was nervous, just as Alex was, but I think, there was a sort of, you may feel a weakness, or maybe the sort of shameful nature of alopecia, where you don't want to be seen in public and all of that sort of thing. And my God, and she's on television, so far worse for her, basically. So I mean, again, amazingly brave of her to do it. But the reaction from the audience was extraordinary, because I think there are a lot of people out there who don't want to talk about the fact they're losing their hair, because they feel embarrassed and they don't want to bring it up or show it to their friends or whatever, because it makes them feel less than perfect, etc. So that was brilliant. So I think there was a lot of press that came out the back of that, and I think Liv, I hope, has derived much strength, and she talks about the fact that she has, out of the sort of community that you then feel part of, because obviously it's not just her saying this has happened to me. People are going, well, don't worry, it's happened to me too. So I think, I think she's derived, I mean, Naz, you're probably better to talk about that, but I think she's derived a lot of comfort out of it as well, and should be rightly proud of doing what she's done. So I think that's an issue which is now on the sort of, is a sort of publicly discussed far more than it was before, I'd say, and that's down to her bravery, certainly.
And definitely, what was really important about that is, and I was watching this episode as a fan, is that there was also the typical Chelsea humour as well. So there was a scene with Fred, and Liv was dating Digby at the time, and they decided to call the wig Wigby, and actually it was such a lovely way to discuss a really serious subject matter, but also have that sense of we can have fun together as friends as well, and be there for you and
that was brilliant.
I love that.
Jamie as well, because Jamie just had a hair transplant, right? Which he'd been quite, Jamie being Jamie was Mark, it's like, I've done this, sort of thing. But I think both dealing with insecurity, actually, when you got underneath that a little bit more, Jamie was dealing with his own sort of insecurity around that as well. And good for him talking about it with Liv. There was a lovely conversation between the two of them as well. So I think, and those things are all really important. It's like, it's not embarrassing. Other people suffer from it. We're all talking about it. Let's just make it a sort of a thing that we all need to deal with.
Aside from all of those harder hitting storylines, there are still a lot of parties. So let's talk about those a little bit. Tell us about the best bits of filming those, and also the challenges that those scenes can maybe throw up for you. Miles, let's start with you.
Oof. Many parties. I think my first party was in Raffles, classic Chelsea night. They're great, and also what I think I've seen go through the last few years is we do parties a lot about what's going on in our lives as well, which is great as well, which we incorporate into the parties and the events, and they're really fun.
Fred, what about you?
As Mars said, the parties they often have a sort of a twist sometimes at the end of them. I mean, when you go to a party in real life, you're like, oh, I wonder if I'm gonna bump into, you know. But yeah, no, I really like, and going back to that sort of Whigby scene, I love it when the cameras just capture something totally like for example, we absolutely lost it. We were crying, laughing, and I love it when you're watching that back. And there's actually the wilderness season, which was the one we went to Suffolk.
Yeah.
And that was actually my favorite season in my entire MIC career. It was not just because of what Mars just said, obviously, but no, I really enjoyed it. And often, I mean, it was also, we were super fortunate to be able to do that as well, because that was in the sort of midst of the second lockdown. And anyway, so we all went off to Suffolk, and it's actually the most I've filmed, probably since I started ever as well. MIC are very good at capturing like the raw emotions, and I think that's what people want to see, you know, is when something is, you can feel it, because you cannot fake that sort of genuine, like absolute, like when everyone's laughing or when someone's really upset. It's like, yeah, it's MIC are wonderful at doing that. And I felt like in Wilderness, because we were all there, I don't know how many miles were there, how many people in total, it was at the entire cast, and we were living together. Everything was happening so fast, like, you know, everything was changing because it was all happening real. There was no like going home at the end of the day. As a result, I really enjoyed that season. It was, I remember a few times Miles getting very excited with things going, "This is Chelsea! This is Chelsea!" Which I thought was so funny.
I remember when I came up to you, know, this is Chelsea.
Now this is Chelsea. And I was like,
Chelsea.
Yeah, very funny.
Faris, what about you? I mean, there must have been some incredible highlights over the past couple of years for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think again, joining obviously was the funnest part, fresh and new, and I think actually making really close, like new friends with some people that I'd seen maybe around Chelsea but hadn't really gotten to speak too much with. So I think a big highlight was making friends with some people like Liv, Inga. These are really nice girls, which I think I had a lot of gay guy friends, and so it's nice to add that.
Yeah.
But I think also just having the sort of constant new experiences, like we always seem to be doing something fun, and there's always new people in Chelsea, and so you never get bored.
yeah, I bet. Well, we have these kind of, you've got the main series, which we usually get approximately cut to every year or so. But then, Naz, why don't you tell us about the spin-offs? Why are those such an important enhancement of the main show? Is it just an excuse to go and film somewhere really hot and beautiful?
Well, it's always a good excuse, but mainly because, these are young people who are going on holidays, and actually when they go on holidays, a lot of stuff goes down, and there are flings, there are relationships, there are fallouts. And so, of course, we want to be there and capturing all of that. I mean, there's something so amazing about joining someone on their summer of fun, and witnessing all those maybe firsts, or maybe moments that they shouldn't have indulged in, and all of that. It's even more fun. And then actually, our weather isn't always great, so seeing someone, sunnier climes, these beautiful people and these places, it's always great for the viewer, I think.
Dave and Naz, I'm sure you're kind of maybe sick to death of talking about COVID, but MIC was one show which adapted so quickly, and we're hearing about the bubbling and everybody in together. So can you tell us how you managed to make that work so quickly and also so successfully?
Go Naz.
Oh, well, I
all down
think
to Naz and the team, that one, definitely.
we were just, so defiant about sort of making it work and making it work safely. That was our sort of main priority. And, we felt that we had a duty to the audience to still supply a series, especially in a time where people were just in their homes and they did need some escapism. So, we worked with health and safety bodies to make sure that we had all the protocols in place. There were rigorous tests going on, every couple of days. It was just, and I think there was such a dedication from the cast to make it work and actually uproot their lives and go and live in this bubble together. But actually on screen, it really paid off, because friendships, yes, they already existed, but they got even tighter. Bonds were forged all the more solidly. And what came out of it is like, yes, this beautiful friendship between Fred and Miles, like that's like a bromance that I hope nothing will come in the way of that, guys. But it just, I think sometimes working with restrictions makes you all the more creative, because you want to make sure that you're delivering to the highest standard, and you want to just keep pushing the boundaries of being creative and actually giving the audience something that they so desperately need in a dark time.
Yes, of course. You mentioned earlier, which I meant to pick up on at the time, the breaking of the fourth wall. So can you tell us a little bit about why that happened then? Tell us about that scene. Why bring that in, like comparatively late in the years that Made in Chelsea have been running?
I think we were just watching that scene, and there wasn't sort of sense of, oh, here, pat on the back time, let's do this really sort of, edgy thing. It just felt right. And it felt that, there's always been this pervading question, how real is Made in Chelsea? Because it looks so beautiful. There is a sense of, people questioning, the reality of it. And the truth is, it is really real. And this is a way that we can demonstrate that to the viewer, because Sam references the show, and it wasn't something that we'd ever sort of planned on seeing, but it just so perfect at the time. And I think it's also the audience being receptive to it at the right time as well. I think it was just a happy marriage of so many things that worked to our advantage, really, on that front. Sure.
And Paris, I meant to ask you earlier, when you were talking about some of the conversations you were having on the show, and especially the one with Liv when you are talking about colorism, and I know that got such a big response from audiences. So how did you kind of engage with audiences over something like this? How did that sort of encourage you to talk more widely on your platform about it?
Well, I think again, because I was dating somebody, like this is just a normal situation that I go through, and I think a lot of people of color relate to it so much. But again, having the place to speak about it was important, because it wasn't just the people of color that related to that. There was also messages that I got from the people who aren't of color. For example, some woman said to me that it was her 60th birthday next week, and she'd never considered racism or even cared, and hearing my conversation has changed her perspective on it after 59 years of being alive, which I thought was really crazy. And sometimes it's not about people, sometimes it's just about putting a conversation in front of people, and then in such a nice natural way, without it having to be so I'm educating you, I'm telling you, I'm just saying my experience for me personally, not even everybody in general. And so I think also the fact that a lot of people of color, for example, I thought some of the things that I went through, I was going through alone, Googling a country before going to see if it's racist, things like that, and just seeing that there were other people that had similar situations that can relate also kind of gave me, again, that kind of sense of community. There are people that are going through the similar stuff to me, and it also felt like I don't know what this conversation would have been like if I had it 10 years ago, because of Black Lives Matter and everything, but people were just so kind and receptive to it that it almost made me feel a lot more confident in my situation. You know what, okay, this isn't something that's my fault or anything to do with me as a person, and I'm very lucky to have such amazing viewers that were really, really supportive.
Before we wrap up, I just want to know, because as I mentioned at the top, the start of the new series is on tonight on E4. So are you all going to be watching? How are you going to be watching? Who do you watch it with? Fred, let's start with you.
Well, I think it's only fair that Miles now has a new house. So I feel like I speak on behalf of him, where he's going to host the whole cast.
Great.
And crew at his new flat.
Oh, lovely.
Which, Miles,
Thanks,
thank you so much.
Hey.
You're as generous as you are handsome.
Hey.
Wonderful. So yeah, that's it. And Rihanna, obviously you were welcome to the Miles' viewing party. So yeah.
Just inviting everyone to the flat. It's fine.
Yeah.
Great.
So Miles is going to be watching it clearly elsewhere.
Not in my own flat. Everyone will be here. I'll be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, normally, to be fair, the Tricep Trio, we kind of watch it together, and then we also do a little Instagram live where we talk about the episode and what's happening. So I think Judas, Fred, and I will definitely be, and everyone from Monkey House will be here with us anyway. So yeah, that's the plan.
And Paris, what about you? Do you like watching yourself on screen?
I just hang out with my mum, really. So just me, her, and a glass of wine, probably, because I think also when I'm with other people, they talk and they ask questions and stuff.
What about Naz and Dave? Do you still? I mean, you must be kind of so steeped in it.
He watched it a lot before he goes. I still watch it. We all watch it live. All of us, I think. I mean, I've watched it at home mostly with my kids on the whole, if they're in.
Sweet.
At least one of my kids is a massive fan. So I get lots of questions.
I love watching it at home as well, just as a fan, sometimes with family, and you just see it in a different way. And you get excited again, because like Dave says, you see it so many times, in the finessing stage before it gets to air, and actually watching it again like a fan is just the best way. And you feel very proud. You feel very proud of the team that put it together, and very proud of the cast that laid their lives bare to make it such a brilliant series. So.
And Dave, just to finish this off, is there anything? What can we expect from series 23?
I mean, it's really good, this series. I'm obviously not going to tell you what happens at all, but it is incredibly. It has a dose of everything Chelsea should offer to everybody, always, basically, and more. I would say it's got some very surprising moments in it, full of fun, laughter, and drama as ever. Yeah, no, it's great. No, we're very proud of this series. It's great, and the show. When it is absolutely going from strength to strength, this series is stronger than the last series, I would say. Oh. So it's great, and hooray for the cast and the team that make it, because they should be very proud of themselves. It's incredible.
Thank you again to our wonderful panel, to Monkey, to Universal International Studios, and to the RTS, and of course you for watching.